For the rugged pioneers on America's first frontier, living in forts dotted throughout the wilds of Western Virginia, a brave courier with a swift horse is their only lifeline. And there are few braver or faster than Ann Bailey. Now, she is on the most important mission of her life. The fate of the entire settlement of Charleston and her own family is entirely in her hands. She must break through the Shawnee warriors besieging the fort to deliver gunpowder and ammunition before it's too late. Ann Bailey's exploits on the early American frontier have earned her the nickname Mad Ann, but she is much more than that.
There are few people who embody the spirit, the tenacity, the stick-to-itiveness, and the gumption that it takes to survive on the frontier than Ann Bailey. To call her mad doesn't do the woman justice. She was the embodiment of that spirit, to survive and fight at all costs.
It is amazing how she lived her life and what a patriot she was. She was the very first truly 100-mile endurance rider in the United States. And most of us are unaware that she even existed.
A person on the frontier could seize the opportunity to reinvent themselves and to prove themselves. And Ann Bailey did all of that.
Born Ann Hennis in Liverpool, England, she journeys to America for a fresh start and makes her way to the Kanawha Valley on the western frontier of Virginia. A land populated by veterans of the French and Indian War, like Richard Trotter.
Can I get your bags, ma'am?
Oh, thank you.
Where are you traveling from?
Virginia, by way of Liverpool.
Liverpool. Not much of an accent on you.
Well, must be my time on the frontier.
You have made quite a journey.
The Kanawha River Valley is an area where there is great abundance. When you're born in, the slums of Liverpool, it's an epiphany for them to come to a place that seems pristine and unsoiled by humankind. It was in every sense the true Garden of Eden.
It sure is a wonder out here, but not without its challenges.
Oh, I live for challenges.
Well, right this way then.
In this new, untamed land, Ann finds a home and a husband.
I do.
The newly married Ann Trotter sets about making a life on the frontier. But even in the wilderness, Ann has to fight against what society expects of her.
In England, the affluent started riding side saddle. And so then Americans began to emulate that. It was like, we are supposed to be ladies, we don't ride astride horses.
Ooh.
I can't keep up.
I'll go a bit slower.
I have a better idea.
She was one of the first pioneers to say, I can't do what needs to be done if I pay attention to this societal norm.
First time I've seen anything like that.
My father was a soldier. I learned things in a military family.
As the years pass, Anne and Richard have a son and settle into a life of domestic tranquility. But war soon comes to their peaceful valley.
The Shawnee had recently relocated to that area, pushed out of their ancestral homeland in the American South, and they were desperate to defend it. All of Western Virginia soon came under the wrath of Shawnee raids. A lot of people say that the Shawnee were a warlike tribe, but the reality is they were just trying to find a place for themselves in this new world. War was really their only option in many cases.
Settlers like Richard Trotter have no choice but to go to war as well to defend their homes and families.
I'll be back soon enough.
But not all of them will come back.
The Shawnee realize these white people are never going to stop coming. And unless we do something to stop them, they're going to take away our way of life. And that will eventually lead us to the Battle of Point Pleasant.
There was never a battle like it in the history of North America. And in the end, the Shawnee back is broken in the battle.
But one of the consequences of this battle is that Trotter is killed in action, leaving Anne without a husband.
Many women probably would have assessed the situation, realized their vulnerability, have then gone back east to their families.
But Anne Bailey was not in a position to just shrink like a violet and move back east. Her home, her family, everything that she made with her bare hands was on the frontier, and she wasn't about to leave it.
The fight can't end here. I will find justice for them. But I'm gonna need your help.
She felt the calling, that it was so important to continue the work that her husband had believed in.
To protect the ones she loves, Anne will have to give up the life she knows and reinvent herself.
She went rogue. She wore men's clothing, and she was kind of Calamity Jane before Calamity Jane.
Anne was a mother, and yet she set aside her family needs and left William with a neighbor that she trusted.
Now you be good to Mrs. Mann, okay? She's gonna take care of you while I'm gone. I love you. I'll be back soon.
She went forward, and she didn't let her gender stop her. She didn't let stereotypes stop her. She didn't do it to prove anyone wrong. She did it because it was the right thing to do.
Anne knows she can best serve her country as a courier, delivering vital news and intelligence between the far-flung settlements on the frontier.
She had her own true goals, so she went out and started learning those trails.
But she still has to get accustomed to the brutal physical demands of the job.
When you're doing that kind of long-distance riding, it would be similar to marathon running. At some point, you run into a wall. And a lot of people give up, and they just say, okay, I can't do this. But the really exceptional riders go, okay, I can push through this, and I can get it done.
Mile after mile, the unforgiving Kanawha Valley forges Anne into a bold, capable horsewoman. But the dangers of the wild are ever present. And not all of them are in human form. After the death of her husband, frontierswoman Anne Bailey has reinvented herself as a courier. But now she has come face to face with the dangers of the wilderness.
Wolves were very common at this time in the U.S., so if you are riding through the forest, especially by yourself, you're in a lot of danger.
Anne has two choices: run or stand her ground.
If you're faced with a wolf pack, you don't want to run. What you want to do is stand up and look larger. You want to make noise, possibly throw rocks at them to try to make them understand you're not the meal they're looking for.
She had developed the expertise, she knew the best routes and how to avoid the two-legged and the four-legged predators that were in the woods. She ended up being the perfect person for the job.
Now one of the best riders on the frontier, Anne gets a chance to deliver a world-changing message. On July 4th, 1776, the Continental Congress ratifies the Declaration of Independence. And it's up to couriers like Anne to spread the news throughout the new United States of America.
Paul Revere is only the most famous example of the significance of horse riders during the Revolutionary War. Horseback riders were the most instant form of communication that were available, and so they played a critical role in delivering the latest intelligence, troop movements, and other forms of information.
Once you get that information to its destination, you need to disseminate it. This led to the development of something called the broadsheet, which are rudimentary posters that could be placed somewhere prominent where people could read it.
Anne rides all across Virginia, spreading the word of independence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Anne and other messengers like her were the first recruiters to go out there and say, hey, we need people to join the militia in America is at risk, and we need people to step up and help us.
Without your support, the British will suppress and murder us all.
But not everyone wants to join the revolution.
The Revolutionary War completely unsettled the backcountry by the split loyalties on the colonist side, with some being loyalists or Tories and others being Americans or patriots.
We need every fighter that we can get.
Boom. There were a lot of people who entertained loyalist sentiments early in the conflict, because early in the conflict, it looked like the king's gonna win, and people leaned toward England as a result of it.
Thank you. Still crispy.
And so all of this gave rise to more violence, hostility, and conflict in a region that was already rife with all of those.
The Loyalists may see a woman alone on the frontier as an easy target, but Anne is anything but.
She was a very strong woman, and she could fight just as well as a man.
For 2 years, Anne has crisscrossed the wilderness, connecting frontier outposts with news and information.
Most impressive.
And officers in the colonial militia have noticed her fearlessness and dedication.
I was just protecting myself, sir.
Now it is time for you to defend your people. Do you think you're up for the task, ma'am?
Yes. Yes, I've been preparing for this.
Anne's skills and bravery make her a perfect recruit to be a militia courier. Now, instead of just delivering the news of independence, she is actively fighting for it.
Messengers played like an important role during the revolution. There was no way to get messages from one place to the other unless you had somebody who was really dedicated to carrying these messages. This became the mission of her life.
In 1777, Anne is dispatched with urgent messages to Fort Randolph at the junction of the Ohio and Kanawha rivers. The fort was built near the site of the Battle of Point Pleasant, the very battle that took her husband's life.
This, of course, stirred memories of not only the loss of her husband, but the most pivotal moment in Anne's life, when she made the fateful decision to become the Anne Bailey of legend.
I think Anne Bailey really at that moment realizes that there's really no going back for her. She has given herself completely to this cause. This is going to drive her forward. This is the point of no return for her, and I think that's a big moment.
But when Anne reaches Fort Randolph, she learns that the ongoing conflict between the colonists and the Shawnee has claimed another victim.
One of the most prominent chiefs and leaders amongst the Shawnee was Cornstalk. He understood and valued peace. When he traveled to Fort Randolph at the beginning of the American Revolution, he was thrown into a jail by patriots and then senselessly murdered.
Cornstalk has just been killed.
When the Shawnee hear about this, no one is going to be safe.
For many of the Shawnee, when they saw Cornstalk treated in such a terrible way, they were convinced that war was the only way to seek revenge.
No colonist is now safe from retaliation by vengeful Shawnee warriors, and Anne must now make a 150-mile return ride through hostile Shawnee territory. Anne rides through the Kanawha Valley toward home. And finds herself in the sights of the Shawnee.
They obviously chased her, and she knew those trails and her horse well enough that she was able to evade them.
When you're in a situation where you're faced with unsurmountable numbers against you, it's better to run and hide and live to fight another day. For Anne, being smaller in stature, it's easier to get into certain places, use the shadows to your advantage. It's going to be a lot easier for her to avoid being detected.
Hiding in plain sight, Anne can only pray that the Shawnee don't find her, because if they do, it will mean certain death. Frontier courier Anne Bailey has encountered a band of Shawnee on the warpath after the murder of their chief. She has already lost her husband to the Shawnee, and if they find her, she will be next.
She hid and left her horse nearby. They looked all around for her, couldn't find her. So they took her horse and went back to their camp.
Anne has survived, but now she is alone in the deep woods with no horse and no provisions.
They left her out there, and of course she didn't have anything to eat or drink because everything was on her horse. Before long, she figured out, oh, I see tracks. So she followed the horse tracks, and she eventually got to where the Indians were resting.
The Shawnee never expected Anne to follow them.
She snuck up to her horse and she kept it quiet, but then it whinnied because it was so happy to see her.
The boldness, sneaking into a Shawnee encampment, stealing back your horse, that's something the Shawnee haven't seen before. It's part of why Anne has the reputation she does. It's not just being crazy, but it's the sheer audacity of doing something that nobody would expect.
They really felt like perhaps she was, we might say, touched in the head and maybe guided by the Great Spirit.
The Shawnee never forget their encounter with the woman they call Mad Anne, but it won't be their last. Anne makes her home base at Fort Lee, a frontier outpost manned by the elite Virginia Rangers under the command of Colonel George Clendenin. Guarding the growing town of Charleston, the fort is a crucial point of defense against native attacks.
Near record time as always.
I aim to do my part. I hope my son's been doing his part while I've been gone. Hey.
Lucky to have you both.
Anne's son, William, now a young man, has rejoined her at the fort. Here, Anne has found a new home, and perhaps even a new family.
Well, don't feel too bad. I have many years of practice on you.
Mind if I take a shot?
By all means.
John Bailey was a ranger, and he rode with John Crockett, Davy Crockett's father.
There. Beat that.
You can see that Anne clearly has a type. Frontiersmen that are fighting hand, tooth, and nail, just like she is.
Officers in the Revolutionary War used whistles to drill troops, send signals, sound alarms. Bailey uses his officer's whistle to playfully distract Anne just as she's about to fire.
I'll wager you can't hit that same mark if we move the target 5 paces back.
I wager I can at 10 paces back. And if I win, I get that whistle, and you shall not ever whistle at me in that way again.
You heard? Move that target back.
I dare say aim is important.
Looks like we got a victor.
You won fair and square. But perhaps I'll win the biggest prize of all.
After over a decade as a widow and single mother, Anne marries John Bailey. The couple finds happiness at Fort Lee for a while. But on the frontier, fortunes can change at any moment.
The year 1791 was a particularly terrible year for the new United States of America. They're now facing a general Indian uprising on their western frontier.
In response to the repeated violations of treaties and broken promises by the Americans, a loose Northwest Confederacy of American Indians begins to form.
And all of this culminates in the Northwest Indian War. It's sort of the Native Americans' Revolutionary War for independence.
As war rages across the frontier, Shawnee leaders launch an attack on Fort Lee.
Take cover! Go, go, go!
And if the fort falls, no one in Charleston is safe.
One of the ways that native warriors found that they could conquer an entire region would be to rid that region of settlers. And their preferred tactic was to besiege a fort. They would surround it. They would choke it off. Nothing gets in, and nothing gets out. Inside Fort Lee, the defense of that position was wholly dependent on gunpowder.
Fort Lee's supply of gunpowder and ammunition is dangerously low. And without it, Anne and her family will soon have no way to defend themselves from the Shawnee onslaught. Anne Bailey's home of Fort Lee is under siege by Shawnee warriors. And now, Anne has discovered the fort is almost out of gunpowder. If the fort's defenders can't replenish their supply of powder and ammunition, they won't be able to withstand the assault for much longer.
Somebody's got to go to Lewisburg to replenish our munitions. It's a dangerous 120-mile trek each way. Whoever goes might not return. But if no one takes this journey, none of us will survive.
Clendenin asks for volunteers to ride to Fort Savannah in Lewisburg. That's nearly 120 miles away, 240 miles round trip through hostile territory as quickly as possible.
I'll go. I can ride the distance.
Please. I can't lose another husband in the Shawnee. I beg you.
It's my duty. Anne Bailey has already sent off one husband who never returned. Now that she's found a home and a family, she won't do it again.
If anyone's gonna make that ride, it's going to be me. I am the most likely to succeed.
Don't be rash.
Anne Bailey volunteers to do it herself because she didn't want to lose another husband to the Shawnee.
No one knows the terrain or the trails the way that I do. I am the fastest, lightest, most experienced rider of anyone here. I'm the one meant to go. All of your lives depend on it.
And without question, Anne Bailey was probably tougher and more reliable than most of the men at Fort Lee.
Anne had been riding for about 15 years, so she's an expert rider. And this is significant because riding on horseback at this time with this kind of terrain is no easy feat.
But Anne's husband, John, doesn't want to lose her either.
If anybody's gonna risk their life, it's going to be me.
You gotta admire a woman. She just took a knife and she cut his saddle. So she knew how to end the argument right there.
John Bailey doesn't have the experience that Anne does. There's no way he could ride over 200 miles without a saddle.
This is madness.
People call me mad for a reason, but in this case, you would all be mad not to let me go.
She's right. Ann's the best one for this ride, but not on that old mare. It's the best horse we have, maybe in all of Virginia.
Colonel Clendenin knows that to be successful, Ann will need all the speed she can get.
It's beautiful.
She sets out on her mission, knowing that she may never see her family again.
So many times she would make choices about what was good for the country rather than what was good for her personally. That was her higher calling that she faced.
If you need me, whistle.
The calculus that went through her mind before departing had to include this. You have to go outside of your stockade, your protective walls. You have to venture out into territory that is inhabited by people who are hostile to you and will kill you.
As soon as Ann leaves the fort, the Shawnees spot her, and they now have a chance to take out Bad Ann.
Once she got going, they did pursue her, and she could hear them behind her, but she outran them.
On her swift new horse, Ann may be able to outrun the expert Shawnee horseman. But even Ann Bailey can't outrun a bullet. Frontier courier Ann Bailey is on a mission to acquire much-needed gunpowder and ammunition for the besieged Fort Lee. But a Shawnee bullet may end her ride before it even begins.
She had this trademark hat, and what was actually shot was the hat, not her.
Ann escapes death by literal inches. But now comes the hard part, making the long, treacherous journey to retrieve the ammunition.
From Fort Lee to Lewisburg, and that's a journey of over 100 miles one way. Now, today, we could complete a journey like that in a couple of hours, and it would be no big deal. Then, it was a life or death type of scenario.
For hours, Ann has ridden as fast as she can, pushing her horse to the brink of exhaustion. And though she wants to keep going, they both need to take a rest and recharge.
Being out in the wilderness, going over long distances, you have to recover. You have to take breaks, you have to rest. Being in hostile territory, you have to be a heightened sense of alertness and awareness. I can't imagine the stress level she had making these stops.
To her shock, Ann discovers a Shawnee boy struggling in the water. It could be a trap, but she won't let this child die, no matter the risks.
Come on. That's it. Oh, you gave me quite a scare.
Ann saves the boy. But now his mother appears, ready to fire on Ann.
This is a precarious situation, to say the least. Ann is completely helpless, at the mercy of a mother. Is this the end of Ann Bailey?
But the Shawnee mother recognizes that she owes her son's life to Ann, and she spares hers. And now, to save the lives of her own son and husband, Ann needs to complete her mission. After an exhausting journey of nearly 120 miles, Ann finally reaches Fort Savannah in Lewisburg. But the soldiers at the outpost are on alert for attack themselves. With the lives of her husband and son at risk, Ann has no time to waste.
Step away. Can't just take military property.
The lives of the Rangers, and they need it.
Find a suspect that the Rangers send a woman out to fetch ammunition. It's a man's job.
I just rode 120 miles. My family is there.
We cannot be handing out ammunition to just anyone.
Well, then I'll just have to take what I need.
At this stage
in the expedition for Ann Bailey. She could do anything to save her family. She wasn't going to be stopped.
Just leave. Peacefully. Forget this whole thing ever transpired.
I can't do that. I would be sentencing those men, my own husband and son, to death.
Sir, with all due respect, I recognize this woman. That's Ann Bailey. I served with her husband, John. She speaks the truth. She can ride as fast as anyone here. She knows these woods. And she can shoot the tick off a deer.
Well, if this is true, you should have no problem hitting that flask off of that there ledge. From back there.
Shoot that flash from back there and you give me what I came for.
Women along the frontier had to defend their homes and their children, so they did know how to use a gun.
But she truly excelled at it. And there were times that she would be the best shot out of all the people present.
Very well. You'll have your munitions.
Thank you.
The unwieldy powder kegs will make for an even more difficult ride. So Ann repacks the powder in bags and powder horns that are easier to carry. Ann has secured the gunpowder and musket balls that her people desperately need. But her horse is spent from the journey, and there's no way it can carry all of the heavy musket balls and powder back to Fort Lee.
It had already made the trip one way, so to get back safely and carry that weight, they loaded up the second pack horse.
Ann and her horse are both on the brink of exhaustion, but they have to turn around and make the nearly 120-mile journey back to Fort Lee, through the forbidding woods of the Kanawha Valley.
Ann rode through the night, through that forest that's so dense and dangerous. She was upright on this horse, ready to fall asleep, ready to fall off. Being on this horse at this point with gunpowder and ammunition, completely exhausted, was extremely dangerous, extremely brave of her, and she did it.
After riding all night, Ann arrives in the woods outside of Fort Lee. But the Shawnee have the fort surrounded, and it may be impossible to get back inside. Courier Ann Bailey has ridden nearly 240 miles in 24 hours to retrieve ammunition for the besieged Fort Lee. But there's no way to get past the Shawnee warriors surrounding the fort.
She's almost home, almost saving the day. And yet the Indians are everywhere.
Nothing is more important than delivering the gunpowder and musket balls to her husband and the other defenders inside the fort.
The Rangers are beginning to run low on this one commodity that is life-saving, and that is powder for their weapons.
Without the powder, the Rangers won't be able to fight back against the Shawnee. So Ann comes up with a plan. She loads herself and her horse down with all the powder horns they can carry.
There's a long history in American warfare of employing decoys and other deception. All Bailey needs is a second, a split second, where her opponent's attention is diverted and she can slip past.
Anne can only hope that her ruse will work, because she won't get a second chance. John Bailey sees that his wife is close, and he jumps into action to help her as the Shawnee ride down the decoy horse. Anne's decoy has deceived the Shawnee for a moment. But it may not be enough time for her to reach safety.
Anne Bailey gets the powder, comes back again safely and unscathed, and saves the day. It's a great moment.
The gunpowder will allow the Rangers to hold the fort and outlast the Shawnee siege.
You've saved us. Needless to say, he's yours. Least we can do.
I think you know what I'm gonna name him. I'm gonna call him Liverpool.
Anne Bailey's historic ride makes her a legend, and for decades she continues to live life on her own terms, riding free and wild on the frontier.
Anne Bailey is the epitome of the American woman pioneer.
She lived her life as she felt she needed to, and she gave other women the courage to do the same. No one came close to the degree of the barriers that she was breaking.
Her legacy is about paving the way for women to ride astride, carry a gun, defend themselves, not be seen as soft people that don't have a lot to offer to the fight, to the hunt, to a huge cause like the revolution.
Had she been a man, we might have known her as Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett or many of these other frontiersmen whose names have come down to us. I think Anne Bailey deserves that too.